director of the National Railway Historical Society. The society was incorporated in 1968 as a not-for-profit corporation with the state of Illinois. Its first museum was located in Catlin, Illinois in 1972. It then moved to Rossville, Illinois in 1976. Rossville is a village of 1,400 people located about 18 miles north of Danville, Illinois on Illinois Route 1. The village of Rossville is somewhat unique with antique shops and collectible displays and also the manufacture of Christmas ornaments. Our museum moving to Rossville probably fit in very well with the decor of the village and the things that they were trying to promote and interest people in. This is a view of the main street in Rossville and some of the shops where the antique and collectibles are displayed. Our sign just north of the traffic light points to the east on Benton Street, where the Railroad Museum is located. The museum is located at the junction of Benton Street and the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. The station building was originally constructed in 1903, and in 1923, Christmas Eve, suffered a disastrous fire. After the fire, the station was rebuilt and considerably changed from its original size. The mezzanine floor in the front was removed, the tile roof was removed, and the north waiting room was considerably reduced in size. But the building, when taken over by the Danville Junction chapter, required a tremendous amount of work and tuck pointing and a new roof, new windows, painting, ground upkeep, and that type of thing. So there was a lot of work put into the building. There's also, as you can see, right alongside the main line of the Louisville National Railroad's line from Evansville to Chicago. And we do have train action. Anyone visiting the museum will be able probably to see some train action and stand along on the platform and take in the noise and the rumble and the roar and the whistles and the horns of the trains going by. There are about, on an average of 6 trains each way per day passing the station. So anyone visiting will have an opportunity to see a little bit of real railroad activity. Now we'll proceed to the interior of the building itself, taking you first to the front room, or what was formerly the waiting room of the building. And here you see the ticket agent's window advertising telegrams and Pullman reservations and things of that nature. The display case you're now viewing came from the Illinois Railroad Station and housed the many trophies and awards that employees of the company earned. Also on the display case is a full uniform for a CNEI conductor with 45 years of service stripes on the sleeve. Moving on around the room, you come to our library area. Here we have magazines of various sorts of modeling and history dating back to about 1938. Considerable number of railroad books of one kind or another that are there for loan. Here you see a training display, and if you look closely you'll notice that the engineer in the cab moves, and when originally programmed, gave signals that the trainees were to recognize. But over the years, children have played with the man's hand so much that it doesn't always work quite right. Going on around to the north wall, you see many of the wall displays, items that were published or issued 50, 75, 100 years ago. And then continuing on around that north wall are display cases showing many mementos, such as menus and tickets and things like that. Here we have a quarter-inch scale display of some prize-winning items that are equipment used on the Chicago and Eastern Illinois Railroad. These are authentic in scale and design. Just looking on the east wall as we're coming around the room is another display case that shows much memorabilia of the railroad days and when trains, passenger trains that is, stopped here in Rossville. And the various collectible pictures and station signs that are no longer in existence. You're now coming, as you can see, full around the room back to the ticket agent's window that a passenger could buy his ticket. Again, looking closely into one of the display cases. And now we're moving into the middle room, which was the agents and operators area, and this is the ticket window from the other side. And the timetables on the wall for ready reference if you were making a trip of some distance so that you could get your connections arranged. Also in this room is where we have our items for sale. This is probably the area where we sell things to make a little money to cover expenses. All of our expenses cannot be covered by donations, so we have to see if we can't sell artifacts, postcards, stock certificates, old magazines, timetables, and items of that nature. You're going on around this south wall in the middle room. You can see the timetable display case that are rather rare. And going on further are some historic photos, photos of the area of Bismarck and Alvin and Rossville and those places that no longer exist. Panning up the wall a bit, you see some station signs of abandoned stations. Some of them you may be familiar with, but these are things that we preserve in the museum. And then going on further around the wall, we come upon a large dispatcher's desk. It had to be large because of the train sheet that was laid out, and this is from Oaklawn here in Danville, Illinois. Continuing on around is the operator's bay, and in here we have the telegraph keys and the sounders and all kind of stationary items that an agent would need, hoops to hand up train orders and this kind of thing. And then from here we'll go to the baggage room in the model railroad layout.
Featured in the baggage room is a model railroad layout constructed by members of the chapter. The baggage room is approximately 22 by 32 feet and features an operating layout of both traction, steam, and diesel. On the left you saw the city, Stanleyville, with one of the members running one of the streetcars around the street. In the background you see the traction area that was constructed by two of the members with some of the cars operating. The foreground is the steam railroad yard and control panel with two of the members operating two freight trains. The background behind the modelers is a refinery that you will see later that was donated several years ago to the chapter and constructed by a man in Danville in 1942. Downgrade from the yard and across the Ross River, we have a westbound freight. As they approach the bottom of the hill, they enter the double track territory and around the curve for a meet with an eastbound train. Here we have one of the small towns along the main line, which is built primarily for the coal mine to the right of the two passing trains. The town is a little mining town built for the employees of the mine. Some of the area of the layout still lacks scenery, and this portion is under construction by the members. After the meet, the eastbound train is now proceeding uphill into the yard and across the Ross River. Motive power and cars are primarily furnished by the different members of the chapter. Although the chapter does own some of the rolling stock, the majority is from member model railroads. After making a complete loop, we see the westbound again, coming down across one of the stone arch bridges on the Ross River. There are two stone arch bridges in this particular section of the railroad, and one girder trestle. Here we see the local coming around the curve past the tower as the other local is backing down into the small town to pick up some revenue cars. The Illinois Terminal local is in the process of going to the Central Electric interchange for delivery of cars to the electric portion of the model railroad layout. Upon arrival at the Central Electric interchange, the Illinois Terminal diesel will make a set out of all equipment for the Central Electric. Central Electric operates entirely from the overhead wire, much as the prototype used to operate between Danville, Champaign, and on to St. Louis. After the cut is made from the caboose, the train will pull ahead and then back the cars into the interchange track. This is one of the normal procedures on the model railroad of the two railroads interchanging cars, much as any prototype railroad does. Up in the background you can see one of the freight electrics that is idling at the moment, ready to come downhill into the yard. After making the delivery, the IT engine backs down on its caboose and will then head back for the main yard on the railroad. The two IT electrics have now come out, picked up the cars, and will soon back down on their caboose that you see sitting on the adjacent track. Once the caboose has been attached to the rear of the train, they will then proceed upward to the city. The next thing you will see, the IT motors are coming by the Shell refinery, which is the primary business on the electric. The electric operation was chosen for the refinery many years ago to keep because of the lack of cinders and sparks. The train now proceeds uphill into Stanleyville, and And here you see it coming around the curve and back down grade. Just below the traction is the one of the diesel trains, and on the near track is another downgrade motor with another freight train. Out of the tunnel we have two passenger motors on the way to Stanleyville, and one that has already picked up revenue passengers is going downhill to the lower level. And here we see them entering Stanleyville and around the loop. The car in the foreground is on the street running section, which is continuous running, picking up local passengers. This is the main tower in Junction and the entrance to Stanleyville. Here we see one of the freight motors and freight train around the loop while the local operates down the city streets. This particular portion of the layout was originally installed in Catlin when the chapter had the former layout down there, and was subsequently moved to Rossville. This is part of the switching operation on the main diesel yard on the other section of the layout. The yard is still under construction, with 6 tracks presently being served, and construction is proceeding with a diesel and steam facility that by 1983 should be completed. Here we see the yard engine is come out on the main and is removing the rear end of the train that has just arrived, and will be shoving back into the yard for classification. Trains will be made up in either direction for member operation.
While you're viewing this train destination sign from Chicago for one of the important trains on the New York Central, I might mention that the chapter does do other things. For one thing, we put on an annual show at the mall the weekend before Thanksgiving. This is one of these shows at the mall.
And we've been very active in teaching people about grade crossing safety and the fact that trains cannot stop for you at any time. It takes a mile to stop a normal freight train running 50 miles an hour down a railroad track. People need education to know what to do, and we need enforcement, and the railroads, of course, keep their engineering department up to snuff, so it'll eliminate any chance of any danger from that aspect. Melvin Day belongs to Melvin Day and Tom Acton. Call it the North Fork Northern. Mainly it's supposed to have Burlington Northern and N&W. We are also running other stuff such as Sioux. We have a Sioux interchange, which is a complete separate unit. We also have some Santa Fe passenger train and a few F units to be out later. Been built for 2 and about a half years, and hopefully to add another 8-foot section to it in another year or so.
Out of Kevin Davis. Kevin, young fella, put this together with his father, and they have a real nice operating HO layout here.
Standard gauge trains. My grandson Gary Inglesby over here and little Tommy behind me. Grandpa talks and they boys run the trains. Most of this standard gauge equipment is from 1906 to 39. Most of what I have is 1925, 1926 period. but some complete trains from 1912 and 1925.
Lieutenant Dale Woodrum, and we collect Lionel 027 gauge. This is a small sample of what we have.
You might mention you have some rare pieces of certain kind or something.
I'm Rick Schrader, one of the 2 O-scalers in the club, and we have a 36-foot setup here again this year, operating 2 trains, primarily CNI and Danville and Western. Jess wasn't able to make it this year because of Ma Bell.
An example of an S-gauge layout by American Flyer. Most of the equipment is 1946 to 1962 vintage. The layout was constructed in about 60 hours of labor, and we can operate 3 trains continuously in a loop system and 1 train in the yards.
Taking a little shot here of this Athearn Power flywheel drive. Myron Floor, the Rail Fun Hobby Shop, is displaying this, and it's a very good unit. It gives a lot of realism to your train operation. Unit, the flywheels.
Well, we are members of the Illiana Central Model Engineers from Covington, Indiana. Just had a head-on over here. You missed the excitement. And we started this club about a year ago, and we started this modular layout approximately 2 months ago. So we have some more modules to add at a later date, and at the present time it measures approximately 10 foot by 22. We operate on 2 outside mainline tracks. The inside, or the 3rd track from the outside, is a branch line. The 2 outside tracks are set up to operate counterclockwise and clockwise. The branch line has a few side tracks, switchbacks and such, little local industry, and these can all be switched into the yard tracks, which you can see here on the end of the module. We hope to add a 4-foot section in the middle to extend our yards at a later date. Also 2 more 4-foot modules down here at the end of the yards to extend this out. On one side we'll have a turntable and steam facilities, and on the other side will be diesel facilities.
Hey, I'm Gary Turnipseed. I'm from Clinton, Indiana. I have an N-gauge layout here. It's 5x7. It's powered by a Hornby 01 microprocessor unit. I have 4 engines here that have receivers in them. Pick up a signal off the track. And each one of them is individually controlled off of each of these receivers. You can run the engines head on into each other, have spectacular wrecks, or you can double head, follow one train right behind the other, all without the block systems, which are prevalent with the present day systems.
I've got an N-gauge. I've been at it for about 4 years now. Got a lot of money in it.
Well, my name's Jewel Hanson. This is my layout here is one my daughter made, and mine's in the basement, most of it. And I've been in it about 8 years, and me and Bobby's been showing together about, how long we've been together, Bob? 4 or 5 years. And outside that, we like it and staying right with it.
These are some of the engines and some of the cars that I painted, probably about 3/4 of what I've done. And with the locomotives, when I get tired of running one road, well, I just switch the bodies and put another road on. And the cars are most of them that you can't buy through the hobby shop, so the only way you can get them is to paint your own. And the same way with the engines, because in hobby shops you have a very small limit of what you can get.
Well, we're looking at some prototype operation here. We might talk a little bit about the museum and the time that it's open. It opens the first Saturday before Memorial Day and is open each Saturday and Sunday and holidays until the last Sunday in September. And the public is invited. There is no charge. We're glad to entertain special groups by arrangement. And the middle room can also be set up for a meeting of about 40 to 50 people in case some organization would like to use it for that purpose. This is a view of some Canadian National engines leased by the Louisville and Nashville doing one of their motive power shortages, and this is a rare shot, unusual for the Rossville area. Again, some leased power by the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. The auto train engines used on the Washington to Florida passenger train. The membership of the chapter consists of those persons that are interested in the railroad hobby. There are photographers, historians, timetable collectors, train riders, model builders, and those type of persons. Anyone interested in this thing can become a member of the chapter and probably would find chapter membership very enjoyable, as the national organization publishes a monthly bulletin. This gives you some idea of the Danville Junction chapter and its activities. You are cordially invited to participate either as a chapter member or a museum member. And thank you so very much for your time.